we'd go over to Narragansett Lake in the wintertime, horses and wagons, and harvest ice. And we had an ice house where you covered it all with sawdust. And if you did it right, it lasted all summer.
The north side of the house, we'd have a window where we'd have the little box, screened in box on the outside of the window, and then from the inside we could reach through and get whatever we put in, and it was always colder on the north side of the house, and it kept it cool.
We had a wind charger system that would charge a big bank of batteries that were in our basement. It was a 32-volt system.
And our biggest activities was when the moon was so bright at night. We'd all get out and play in the moonlight.
I was used to kerosene lanterns, kerosene lights.
I remember the guys coming out and hand digging the holes, and us boys came home from school. Here was this hole out with the chicken house covered up to keep anybody from getting in it. Well, you know, boys, we uncovered that hole and let my brother down in there, and he could look down in there, and there he was. I said, "Now you ain't gonna get out."
That I remember digging those holes right across that field, wondering why would they put them holes right in the middle of the field. My dad said, "That's because we want electricity." You know?
Well, I remember running home as hard as I could, which was a half a mile from school that night, because we were going to have electricity that night. And
the lady said, well, when they came down to put electricity in our house, they put stakes right in front of the garage. She said, I ran in the house and told my husband, you know, they put stakes right in front of the garage for a pole. He said, I don't give a damn, we'll move the garage.
When I was 6 years old, we got electricity in our home, and with a little flick of the switch, we had light, a single light bulb in the middle of our room.
Well, we started staying up later and getting up a little later.
And I remember that the electricity helped me with my homework quite a lot, because I had a lot of homework. I wasn't too smart in school. So I remember having to stay up later because I had electricity to do my homework.
the day seemed longer. You had lights in the morning and you had lights at night.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
You could go in another room and you actually had lights.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a whole revelation from the way we had been living.
The first day on the job is I came to work as a serviceman, and they sent a young man with me who was an apprentice lineman to show me the ropes of the area. And that evening we got in, and the next day, Everett was my general superintendent, said, I'm not going to send anybody with you today. And you know, I'd been gone for 9 years. And I thought, well, we'll give her a shot. And by luck to have it, we had a dispatcher by the name that was had owned the Culligan service here. And he said, Ed, he said, all you got to do is call me. Tell me where you're going. And he says, I'll tell you how to get there.
My first job at Empire was writing on the meter calendars that we took around were delivered out. I wrote names and addresses on those. They had a little card that for each month, and they would read their own meters and write down the reading, and then they would mail them in. They had like a postcard. And that was my first job at Empire Electric.
Dad's the one who told me, he said, why don't you go to the power company and apply for a job? So I went down and talked to Archie Jarrett and Don Hobbs, and went down to well, I guess it was the workforce center then, and took a little test and went back home, and I called every Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock for almost 6 months.
Wow.
And they finally said, well, just come to work.
They had me just visiting people, going into their homes and introducing myself. And then, actually, sometimes I would go on high bill complaint. I went over by Memphis one time. It was the trailer, and they were complaining about their bill. And I went all through the trailer, could find nothing wrong. Was walking along the side of the aisle, and I felt the heat on my feet. They had a baseboard heater, and it was on all the time. So it was nice if you could find, what was really wrong.
Safety is the number one thing.
We'd go down in the old radio room at Empire, in the old office, and once a month, and if we were down there for more than 30, 45 minutes, or God forbid an hour, they were saying, go. We don't have time to waste on this. And now, there's a lot more safety. And the equipment we work with, the buckets and the diggers, got a lot more safety features.
We had an accident out here at the power outage. Naturally, the serviceman takes off out there first to check everything out. Well, he got out there, and a little boy, about 10 or 11 years old, had stuck a television antenna, a long aluminum pole, up into the high voltage power lines. He was in there laying on the bed. He was just black as he could be. One of his eyes was crossed, looking to the far right. The other one was looking to the far left. Well, our serviceman panicked, and we heard him calling. The crew was going out there to fix the line and get the power back on. He called in, and he says, bring the rescue unit and bring a doctor. He said, there's been a very serious accident. So here come the rescue unit, and Doc Wallington, they picked him up and brought him out. A very nice man. And they went into the house where the little boy was laying on the bed, all black and his crossed eyes. And soon they come out laughing. They said, oh, he's going to be okay. He's not hurt. And then his mother come out, and she said, he's black because he's been playing in trucks in the coal pile, in the dust. And said he's always had cross eyes, that he was born that way.
Ivan Patterson was a manager from 1944 until 1969. That was a span of 25 years. I think what Ivan contributed more than anything else was he built the foundation of the cooperative. A lot of the major three-phase extensions, a lot of the substations were a consequence of what he did. After Ivan, Everett Johnson was hired, and he was here from 1969 until 1986. That was a span of 17 years. And during Everett's tenure here, he got, I guess what he had to go through was increasing regulatory issues, which caused a lot of increases in wholesale power from Colorado Ute. In fact, in looking at some of the history, I saw in a span of 4 or 5 years an increase in 15%, another increase in 15%, another increase of 22%, an increase of 19%, and an increase of 25%. It's hard to manage in that kind of an environment, but Everett did.
He was the one, him and the board at that time was instrumental in making Empire what it is today. One of the things he told me when he hired me, he said, Ed, he said, well, all we got to sell is service. And he said, consumers, in my opinion, come first.
I started in 1986, and by the time I retire at the end of this year, I will have 28 years. During my tenure, I think we've moved to a more a strategic direction. We've adopted a process called the continuous improvement concept. That was done during our first strategic planning session with the board and staff.
Neil is another Everett Johnson, except he has a better relationship one-on-one. He's a good PR man, totally honest. If he says you something, you can bank on it.
We've been very lucky to only have had 3 managers since this organization was established. Ivan Patterson, Everett Johnson, and Neil. Neil's been here the longest, and now we have the job of replacing Neil, which is going to be pretty hard to fill those shoes.
Well, one of the biggest differences I've noticed is before, when we'd work, we'd always go to the house and ask them if we could turn their power off. And they'd say, oh yeah. And the main question was, do you have a cake or a pie in the oven? and the women, you know, if they were baking, well, we didn't turn their power off. But now nobody wants their power off. The people on the points that call me in the morning and say, hey, Dwayne, can you come out and get our lights going back on? I'd say, well, when did they go out? And they say, oh, they went out about 10 o'clock last night, but we didn't want to get you up. You know, if you can come back today sometime, get them on, we'd appreciate it. And boy, that's not the case anymore.
We have come a long ways, probably from day one. The first 75 years, I've only been involved the last 30. I've seen significant improvements. We are a much more professional operation.
So, of the 75 years in business, the 3 managers have a collective 70 years, or about 93% of the total. I think that success that we've all had is because of our long tenure to begin with. But more importantly, we all work for a quality board. The board's provided us with the resources we needed. We all had terrific staffs and employees. They're incredibly talented, and I think that both Ivan and Everett would agree with me. They're our #1 asset. And we have an informed membership. Our members elect directors that empower managers to get the job done.
I'm really proud of Empire. I think Empire serves this community. Dolores, Mancos, Cortez, Dove Creek, and Monticello was reliable, dependable. We all wish it was cheaper, but it's not going to get cheaper. In this day and age, it's not going to get cheaper. I think one of my jobs on the board of directors is to hold expenses down as close as we can, but the main thing is a reliable, dependable system.
I don't think people realize this, how great it is to have an organization like that is strictly consumer oriented.